Ladies and gentlemen, we're here.
I'm part of the Kliq, isn't everybody?
Yes! 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 I got an idea, yeah. Beat up John Cena!
Give me a hell yeah!
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Too sweet! This is where the power lies!
I am the man.
If you can survive! It's showtime, folks!
The following episode is scheduled for one fall, and it is for your listening pleasure. This is In The Kliq.
What's up, everybody? Baby Huey here, back at it for a very special episode of In The Kliq. And my guest is a pro wrestling legend who will be appearing on the next episode of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, which you can watch this Sunday at 10 p.m. on A&E. On the line right now with me is WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. How's it going, Jerry?
It's going great. I'm so excited to be here with you because I know I'm supposed to be here and you're going to ask me questions, but I wanted to ask you a question or two because I've always wondered this. How did you come up with the name Baby Huey?
Okay, so I'll give you the quick Cliff Notes version. So when I was a little kid, my aunt who used to babysit me, I just reminded her of the cartoon character Baby Huey. I was always big for my age. I always wanted my milk bottle filled. I used to walk bull-legged, and, it just stuck with me. And then when I started working here at the radio station almost over 15 years ago, they wanted to give me a nickname. And my real name's Danny, but they're like, we got to give you something else. And do you have any nicknames? And my coworkers, I told them I used to be called Lurch in high school because I was the tallest white guy on the basketball team. But I said when I was little, my aunt used to call me Baby Huey. And they're like, bam, perfect. Just easy to remember, off the tongue, and it's stuck with me ever since. So it's true. You don't get to pick your nicknames around here.
Well, you're right. We used to have a wrestler. At the time, this has probably been, like you said, maybe 30 years ago. Uh-huh. We used to have a wrestler who came through the Memphis territory named Baby Huey. It was classic. I'll never forget, we did matches with him where if he lost, he had to strip down and put a diaper on and all of this stuff. It was great.
Oh my God. So when I started as an intern back in like 2005, so my coworkers made me dress up in a diaper. I had to go down to the Ferry building here in San Francisco, and I had lotto tickets taped all over my body, and all these listeners and people coming off the ferry boats would just pick them off me. It was just, I had to call into the station. So that was many years ago. But yeah, so I too had to end up in a diaper at one point. So I know that feeling. But listen, Jerry, I just want to thank you again for making the time to talk with me today. So let's jump right into it. WWE's Most Wanted Treasures. I love the show and the whole premise. We see Stephanie McMahon, Triple H as the host of the show, but they're also leading this team of collectors, WWE superstars and legends as they're investigating, traveling across the country to hunt down and try to get back as many of these wide variety of rare and special WWE collectibles. So the first episode, we saw Mick Foley. Second episode had Kane and Undertaker. And now you're going to be featured on the next one. So what are you on the hunt for on this coming episode?
Well, I'm on the hunt for a couple of things. They wanted to try to put together an exhibit featuring my original gear, my original royal robe that I wore my first debut in WWE back in 1993.
Okay,
that's when I showed up. They just had this King of the Ring tournament where Bret the Hitman Hart won and was being crowned. They were having a coronation for him, and he was being crowned the King of the Ring. So I showed up, and I'm all upset, of course, there should be only room for one king in the WWE, and that was going to be me. So I had on this blue king robe and this blue crown, and I went up and I interrupted the ceremony. I smashed Bret Hart's crown. I stomped it into the ground. I picked up the throne. I knocked Bret down. I threw the throne on him. And so that outfit that I was wearing that night became sort of famous. It became synopsis. What's the word?
I think synopsis. Yeah. Synopsis. Yeah.
Synonymous. I'm trying to say synopsis for some reason. But anyway, it came synonymous with the King, Jerry Lawler, there in the WWE. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that robe and that crown from 1993. And then also another thing that was synonymous with Jerry Lawler was Andy Kaufman's neck brace. You got to remember Andy Kaufman, the star of the TV show Taxi.
Yep.
And the guy that came to Memphis, and I had a match with him, dropped him on his head a few times with a pile driver. He spent 3 days in the hospital, and after that, he wore this neck brace for like 6 months. Even wore it on the David Letterman show when I showed up there and slapped the taste out of his mouth. But we're looking for Andy's original neck brace that he wore after I gave him the pile drivers. That was in 1983.
Oh, my God. That is so cool to hear. I cannot wait to watch it. And, speaking about Andy Kaufman, listen, I know you talk so much about that, but I rewatched your Broken Skull session with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, I was just hearing you talk about just that time period. And, one thing that was just really special about your rivalry with Andy Kaufman was just that everyone really believed how much you guys hated each other. And I've been thinking how I just wanted to phrase this. Do you think wrestling or sports entertainment today just lacks that believability factor? From my observation, we see superstars who are very active on social media, other platforms, and how they present themselves is very different than what we see on TV. So do you think we'll ever see feuds like what you and Andy had once again in pro wrestling?
Well, the only way that would really happen, the only way that could happen again, and you said the key word, thanks to social media, it makes it impossible for that to happen again. But the only way that could really happen is if you get two guys that genuinely get in a fight.
Yep.
And it gets filmed. But that, honestly, that just doesn't happen very often. And so, and like I say, it's impossible now with social media to keep anything a secret.
Exactly.
And that was part of what made wrestling so great for so many years was the secretiveness of it, and now that's gone. So you just have to present it in another light. You have to present it as entertainment now.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. And listen, so as a kid growing up watching WWE in the 80s, and I was a teenager in the Attitude Era, so that was my exposure to pro wrestling. However, in my 20s and 30s, that's when I try to go back and learn more about the territory days. And everyone I talk to tells me how much they love the Memphis territory and what you created there. And the CWA was known for its, the theatrics, over the top heels who generate so much heat with their promos to help get the baby faces over. You guys had these legendary bras and just very interesting storylines that would carry over from week to week that influenced other promotions to this day. So I just want to know, where did that all come from? Was that between you and Jerry Jarrett? Were you guys the brainchild of it all? And how did you guys come up with this style and presentation of wrestling?
Well, you know what? You're right. It was Jerry Jarrett and I. We were the owners of the company then from 1977 on. And I don't know. It was just the two of us had amazing chemistry when it came to booking matches and coming up with stipulation for matches. And the other thing is, we had to do every Saturday morning. We had to write and we'd do it. We would book these things. Like he would book for 6 months, and then I would book for 6 months. Then he would come along and do it again. So we never really did that much together. We were separated most of the time. So when I was booking, I had to write an entire 90-minute live TV show for every Saturday morning.
Wow.
And then, of course, we had matches every single night of the week. We'd go from there. Saturday morning, we'd go to Nashville Saturday night. We'd go to Memphis on Monday night. We'd go to Louisville, Kentucky on Tuesday night, Evansville, Indiana on Wednesday, Lexington, Kentucky on Thursday, Tupelo, Mississippi on Friday, and by then it was back time to go to do TV Saturday morning. So it was just a constant pressure, actually. It was a constant pressure to keep coming up with stuff week in and week out, and you were always with the mindset, man, we got to top whatever we did last week. So it just, to put people in the seats. So I don't know. It was just, I always had the gift of Jerry would be total preparation time would be very long to write his Saturday morning TV. He'd start on it once it was finished. He'd start on the next week's TV, trying to come up with different ideas and everything. I would write the Saturday morning TV when I was booking. When I left the town on Friday, it would be like Tupelo, Mississippi, or Blytheville, Arkansas. I would sit down with one of those yellow legal pads, and I would write the entire TV in like an hour and a half on the drive back to Memphis. Wow. And so I always had the ability to just come up with stuff on the spur of the moment, and and it just, fortunately, it always worked. I don't know how or why, but I just always had that kind of gift.
That's so cool to hear. Listen, I know I'm very generous with your time. Just a couple more real quick. One thing I don't think a lot of fans realize is that one of the greatest heels in sports entertainment is, of course, Mr. McMahon. And that character had its first incarnation in the Memphis territory in the early 90s. So how did that all come together? You getting Vince McMahon down there to kind of start up this Mr. McMahon persona? Well,
the way that all started was because when I first signed on to go to the WWE in actually 92, I went just as a person that was going to be on the Monday Night Raw show, and then I would go back to Memphis and work the Memphis territory the rest of the week.
Okay.
And so once we started doing that, WWE started using Memphis as we were actually the first developmental territory for them. They started sending talent down, that they weren't quite ready to use. They started sending them down to Memphis where they could work every single night and that sort of thing. And so, I can't remember who was the first one. I don't know. They may have sent Bret Hart or somebody down to work some matches with me.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into the fact where Vince would cut some interviews for these guys. And I think he really enjoyed doing the heel type interviews. And we actually got Vince to come down to Memphis, sit in the corner, and he tripped me And the funny thing was, in Memphis, I was the big baby face. Everybody loved me in Memphis because I was a hometown kid. But then when I went up to WWE, I was the big heel, and it was just the exact opposite. Everybody that loved Vince McMahon in the WWE down in Memphis, they hated him. So because he was going against me. So he came down, and I swear I'll never believe otherwise that he got that first introduction into himself going out and getting to be a heel character. And he fell in love with it. And he, to me, you go back and look, I think Vince was certainly had the most heat of any heel ever in the history of the WWE. He was the devil's advocate to The Rock, to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and still up to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just he was made for that. He's just the perfect heel.
Oh, that's so cool hearing you talk about that. Listen, Jerry, I know it's a busy day for you promoting WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, your episode that you're going to be on this Sunday, 10 p.m. on A&E. But I just want to say, listen, thank you for 50 plus years in the business. Congrats on that. But also thank you for just being the voice of my generation. I know a lot of people tell you that, but I just really want to thank you, and I appreciate everything you've done for the business, just all the years of entertainment you brought to me. And just, whenever I had hard times, wrestling was always there for me to tune in and just escape for a couple hours, every week. And, your voice, you and JR, I can't thank you enough for just everything you've brought to me and my family and friends. So thank you.
Well, I really do appreciate that. And I do get, I go out and do Comic Cons and at wrestling events or whatever. That's the thing that I hear the most. That one phrase people will say, King, you were the voice of my childhood. And to that, I always say, that's why you're scarred for life.
Oh, on that note, let's wrap it up. But no, Jerry, listen, I hope to do this again with you very soon. And I cannot wait to see, what maybe comic-wise you can do with, Headlock. I love your artwork there as well. So hopefully we can do this again real soon. And good luck with everything. And thank you again for making the time.
Baby Huey, my favorite name in radio. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks. There you have it. Thank you again to WWE Hall of Famer and pro wrestling legend Jerry the King Lawler for being on the show, and watch his appearance on the next episode of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures this Sunday at 10 p.m. on A&E. Make sure to follow Jerry Lawler on Twitter at Jerry Lawler and Instagram at Real Jerry Lawler. All right, Kliqsters, let's go home now. Remember to subscribe to In The Kliq on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're also on a ton of other major podcast platforms. Help the show out by rating, reviewing, leave a comment, and share the podcast. And also subscribe to In The Kliq's YouTube page. Watch the videos, hit that like button, and leave a comment there as well. Also, please follow In The Kliq on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for @InTheKliq. Email us at inthekliq@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for tuning in and for all the support. And that's the bottom line because Huey said so.